What if the moment that changed everything wasn't the day you failed, but the day you spoke? What if the deepest regret you carry isn't about what you did, but about what slipped out of your mouth when your heart was tired, your patience was thin, and your spirit was already bleeding? And what if the silence you've been running from, the quiet you can't stand, the pause that feels like losing, is actually the place God has been trying to meet you? Because some pain doesn't come from enemies. It comes from a sentence you didn't mean to weaponize, a sentence you thought was honest, a sentence you believed was necessary, a sentence you said because the silence felt unbearable, and filling it felt like survival. But afterward, you felt it. The shift in the room, the tiny change in their eyes, that invisible distance that wasn't there before. And you wanted to take it back, not because you were cruel, but because you were trying to protect something: your dignity, your relationship, your peace, your place in someone's life. Sometimes we speak because we're afraid silence will make us look weak. Sometimes we speak because being misunderstood feels like suffocating. Sometimes we speak because deep down, we're tired of not being heard. And yet, isn't it strange? The more you explain, the less they understand. The more you correct, the more they resist. The more you talk, the more your heart feels exposed. You didn't come here because you love noise. You came here because you're tired. Tired of conversations that turn into regret. Tired of saying the right thing and still losing connection. Tired of feeling like your voice is doing the opposite of what you intended. And maybe, just maybe, this is the moment God is gently putting His hand over your mouth, not to punish you, but to protect you, not to erase you, but to restore you. So stay with me, not because I'm about to teach you a rule, but because something in you already knows. There are battles you cannot win by speaking louder. There are moments where the most spiritual thing you can do is not to prove your point, but to keep your soul safe. There's a quiet ache that comes after the words are spoken. Not loud, not dramatic, just heavy. It settles in your chest when the room goes still. When no one argues back, not because they agree, but because something inside them closed. And you replay it later. The tone you used, the timing, the look on their face you didn't notice until it was too late. You tell yourself, I was just being honest. Or, if I didn't say it, no one would. Or maybe, they needed to hear the truth. But honesty without rest can become sharp. Truth without tenderness can become too much to carry. And somewhere deep down, you feel the contradiction. Your heart wanted closeness, but your words created distance. That confusion hurts, because you're not trying to control, you're trying to care. You're not trying to dominate, you're trying to protect what matters to you. Yet the more you speak, the more misunderstood you feel. The more you explain, the more alone you become. So you keep talking, filling the silence before it can expose the fear underneath. The fear of being overlooked. The fear of being dismissed. The fear that if you stop speaking, you might disappear. And no one ever told you that silence can feel unsafe when you've spent your life having to defend yourself. No one told you that some people learn to speak quickly because they learned early on that no one was coming to speak for them. So you developed a voice, a sharp one, a fast one, a voice that could survive. But survival isn't the same as peace. And now, even when your intentions are pure, your spirit feels restless, tight, like it's always bracing for the next conversation, the next correction, the next explanation. You don't feel heard. You don't feel held. And the silence you avoid feels louder than any argument. If that sounds familiar, you're not broken. You're just tired of carrying everything with your words. And maybe the problem isn't that you speak too much. Maybe it's that no one ever taught you what silence could do for you. What if the struggle isn't that you talk too much, but that you've been using words to carry weight they were never meant to hold? What if your voice has been doing the work that trust was supposed to do? What if your explanations have been filling the space where surrender was meant to grow? Because silence feels dangerous only when we believe nothing else is working. And yet, there are seasons where God doesn't ask you to speak more clearly. He asks you to stand more quietly. Not because your voice lacks value, but because your spirit needs room to breathe. There is a kind of wisdom that doesn't arrive through correction. It arrives through restraint. A strength that doesn't announce itself, but changes the atmosphere simply by being still. You see, some things break when they are explained too soon. Some relationships heal only when they are given space. Some truths need time before they can be carried without cutting. And perhaps that's why your words, though sincere, have felt heavy lately. Not wrong, just premature. This isn't about silencing yourself forever. This is about learning when your voice is meant to rise and when it is meant to rest. Because there is a difference between being quiet out of fear and being quiet out of faith. And the journey we're about to take together is about discovering that difference. A journey into a story, not meant to accuse you, but to mirror you. A story of a woman who loved deeply, meant well, spoke often, and didn't realize what her voice was costing her until heaven itself invited her into silence. This is where understanding begins. At first glance, the problem looks obvious. I talk too much. I react too fast. I say things I later regret. But those are only the surface symptoms. Beneath them lies something quieter and far more human. Because people don't speak excessively because they love the sound of their own voice. They speak because they're trying to manage something inside. Uncertainty, fear, the need to feel relevant, the need to feel safe. Words become a tool, not for communication, but for control. Not control over others in a cruel sense, but control over outcomes. You speak to prevent loss. You explain to avoid misunderstanding. You correct to protect what you care about. You answer quickly because waiting feels like surrender, and surrender feels risky. So your mouth moves before your spirit settles, and without realizing it, your words start doing jobs they were never meant to do. They try to fix emotions instead of honoring them. They try to force clarity instead of allowing process. They try to protect relationships instead of trusting them. The real issue isn't volume, it's timing. It's the subtle belief that if you don't speak now, something will fall apart. That if you don't intervene, guide, explain, clarify, warn, everything will unravel. So you step in early, too early. And what feels like wisdom to you feels like pressure to them. What feels like care feels like correction. What feels like love feels like control. Not because your heart is wrong, but because your spirit hasn't been given permission to wait. And waiting requires trust. The cost of speaking too soon is rarely immediate. It doesn't announce itself. It accumulates quietly. At first, nothing seems wrong. Conversations continue. Life moves on. But beneath the surface, something begins to shift. People start filtering what they share with you. Not because they don't love you, but because they don't want to be corrected, redirected, or explained to when they're still processing. Trust thins. In relationships, your presence starts to feel instructive instead of safe. They come to you for answers, but stop coming to you with their hearts. In families, your voice becomes the loudest one in the room. Decisions begin to orbit around you. Others grow passive, not because they lack strength, but because there's no space left for theirs. In children, especially, this shows up as hesitation. They ask fewer questions. They doubt their instincts. They wait to be told what to think before they think it. Inside you, something changes too. You feel needed, but not known. Involved, but not close. Right, but lonely. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, your words begin to lose their weight. Not because they aren't true, but because they arrive too often, too early, too full. Silence would have allowed something to form. Prayer would have softened the ground. Waiting would have invited others to rise. But instead, your voice filled every gap. And now the gap you feel most is the one between you and the people you love. Beneath the urge to speak, there is almost always a fear. Not a dramatic one, a quiet one. The fear that if you don't say it now, you'll lose your chance. The fear that silence will be misinterpreted as weakness. That restraint will look like indifference. That waiting will cost you influence, respect, or connection. So you speak, not to harm, but to stay visible. You speak to make sure you matter, to make sure your care is recognized, to make sure things don't spin out of control without you. And that fear is understandable, because somewhere along the way, you learned that being quiet didn't keep you safe. Maybe no one listened when you were silent. Maybe your needs were ignored unless you insisted. Maybe your voice became your armor. So now, even when love is present, your body remembers a time when silence meant loss. But here's the truth that gently confronts that fear. What you're afraid of losing by staying quiet, you are already losing by speaking too soon. Connection, authority, peace. And this is where the shift begins. Not with guilt, not with shame, but with awareness. Because once you see the fear driving the habit, you can finally stop fighting the symptom and start healing the source. Which is why this story matters. The land was dry, not just from the sun, but from waiting. South of ancient Canaan, where the wind carried secrets across open ground, and the heat pressed down like an unanswered prayer, there lived a woman named Ashira. Her name meant the one left behind. Not because she had been abandoned, but because life always seemed to move ahead of her, just out of reach. Ashira was sharp. Everyone knew that. She understood the patterns of the stars, the wisdom of elders, the language of herbs and seasons. Her mind moved faster than most, and her mouth followed without hesitation. Silence made her restless. Quiet felt like waste. So she filled it with insight, with correction, with truth spoken quickly and confidently. She believed words were how you helped, how you protected, how you stayed ahead of disappointment. As a child, she led the others. As a young woman, she advised freely. As a wife, she responded before thoughts were finished. She married a gentle man named Anan, a builder of tents, a listener, a man whose strength lived in stillness. He loved her fire. At first, he believed patience would soften her edges, that time would teach what no argument could. But Ashira didn't see a problem. She was doing what she had always done, using her voice to keep life from slipping out of control. And she had no idea that the very gift she trusted most was quietly unraveling everything she loved. Life with Ashira moved at the speed of her thoughts. Conversations never lingered. Questions were answered before they fully formed. Silence rarely survived more than a breath. Anan learned to pause mid-sentence, not because he had nothing to say, but because his words were often met before they could land. At first, he smiled through it. Then he grew quieter, not out of resentment, but out of fatigue. In the evenings, as the desert cooled and shadows stretched across the tents, Ashira would speak of improvements, better ways, wiser choices. She meant well. She always did. But intention cannot soften interruption. In gatherings, she corrected him gently. At least, that's how she saw it. In front of others, she would refine his thoughts, reframe his ideas, sharpen his conclusions. She believed she was protecting him from error, but protection that doesn't ask permission becomes exposure. The moment that changed everything came during a drought. The elders gathered to speak of water. Anan was asked to offer a solution. He stood, steady but hesitant, and began to speak. Only a few words in, Ashira rose. Her voice, clear, confident, certain, cut through the circle. The people listened. Some nodded, some smiled. Anan sat down. No argument followed, no rebuke, just a quiet shift. That night, the fire burned low. Anan said nothing, not because he was angry, but because something sacred had withdrawn. Ashira believed she had helped him, saved him from embarrassment. But what she had taken, without realizing it, was his voice. And from that day forward, the silence between them grew heavier than any argument ever could. Silence did not arrive all at once. It crept in. It lived in Anan's shoulders, how they slumped as he worked. In his prayers, how they shortened as if words themselves had grown tired. In the children, how they waited before acting, eyes searching their mother's face for instruction. Ashira didn't notice at first. Noise has a way of hiding its consequences. Years passed. 3 children were born. Life continued. But the air inside the home grew tight, as if every breath had to pass through her voice first. Then one day, a stranger arrived. A wandering prophet, dust-covered, eyes burning with a quiet authority that did not need volume. When he spoke, people gathered. When he paused, they leaned in. Ashira stood among them, arms crossed, already forming her reply. Before she could speak, the prophet turned. "You," he said softly, "you speak before heaven finishes." The words landed like stillness. Ashira opened her mouth, and nothing came out. Not anger, not defense, not even sound. For 7 days, her voice left her. At first, she felt punished, stripped, exposed. Then something unexpected happened. She began to hear her daughter humming while weaving, her son praying without being told, her husband singing quietly as he worked, a sound she hadn't heard in years. Life breathed again. On the 8th day, the prophet returned. "The Lord did not silence you for what you said," he told her. "He silenced you for what you would not let others say." Her voice returned that afternoon, but her urgency did not. Ashira had learned something silence alone could teach, and she would never speak the same way again. Maybe you see yourself in her. Maybe not in the desert, not in the tents or the elders, but in the impulse. Maybe you too step in quickly, finish sentences, offer solutions before the pain has fully spoken. Maybe you call it love, responsibility, concern, and maybe it is. But maybe you've noticed the same quiet signs, the way people sigh before responding to you, the way they say, "It's fine," instead of telling you the truth, the way conversations stay on the surface now, not because you're unsafe, but because your presence feels full. Maybe you don't mean to lead every moment. You just don't know how to sit in the uncertainty of not leading. So you speak. And if you're honest with yourself, it's not because you want control. It's because you want peace. But peace cannot be forced into existence with words. It grows in the spaces between them. Maybe you've been trying to fix what only patience can heal. Maybe you've been explaining what only time can reveal. Maybe you've been talking where listening was the invitation. And none of that makes you wrong. It makes you human. And this is where the tension lives. Because a part of you already knows how to be still, but another part is terrified of what might happen if you are. You pause, and your chest tightens. You stay quiet, and your thoughts get louder. You wonder, what if they misunderstand me? What if they make the wrong choice? What if my silence costs us something that can't be repaired? So you hover between restraint and reaction. You want to trust, but trust feels slow. You want to wait, but waiting feels like losing ground. And afterward, when the words spill out anyway, you feel that familiar mix of justification and regret. You tell yourself you had good reasons, and you did, but still, something feels misaligned. Not sinful, not shameful, just off. You care deeply, you love fiercely, yet you keep finding yourself in moments where love doesn't land the way you hoped it would. And that hurts more than silence ever could. Because you're not trying to dominate the story, you're trying to protect it. But protection without permission can feel like pressure. And slowly, quietly, you begin to sense it. This isn't about learning to say less. It's about learning to hold more without speaking. What if the invitation isn't to become quieter, but to become deeper? What if God isn't asking you to suppress your voice, but to let it rest until it carries peace instead of urgency? Because change doesn't begin with silence as a rule. It begins with silence as trust. A trust that says, I don't have to manage this moment. I don't have to shape every outcome. I don't have to rescue everyone with my words. There is a kind of waiting that feels empty, and a kind that feels alive. This is the second kind. The kind where you listen not to respond, but to understand. The kind where you let discomfort pass without rushing to fill it. The kind where you choose prayer over persuasion. And no one is asking you to do this perfectly. just gently, moment by moment. Because every time you pause instead of react, you create space. Space for others to grow. Space for God to move. Space for your words, when they finally come, to heal instead of hurry. This is not the end of your voice. It's the beginning of its wisdom. There is a woman in Scripture who understood this kind of silence long before it was ever explained. Mary. Not the gentle figure we reduce to paintings and poems, but a young woman carrying a truth so disruptive it could have cost her everything. She had every reason to speak, to explain herself, to defend her integrity. She could have demanded understanding from those who questioned her. She could have pleaded her case when whispers followed her steps. She could have shouted truth into a world hungry for accusation. But she didn't. When heaven entrusted her with something holy, Mary didn't rush to narrate it. She held it. She didn't mistake silence for passivity. She recognized it as reverence. Some things are too sacred to be explained too early. Some callings are weakened when they are over-defended. Mary understood that what God was forming in her did not need her commentary. It needed her trust. So she chose stillness over self-protection. And history was changed not by what she said, but by what she was willing to carry quietly. Mary's strength wasn't loud. It was hidden in restraint. When confusion surrounded her, she didn't rush to clarify. When judgment pressed in, she didn't scramble to correct the narrative. She waited. Not because waiting was easy, but because control would have been heavier. Scripture says that Mary treasured these things and pondered them in her heart. That word, pondered, doesn't mean passive. It means she held tension without releasing it too soon. She carried questions without demanding answers. She allowed God's process to unfold without interrupting it with fear-driven speech. This is the kind of silence that strengthens the soul. Not the silence of suppression, but the silence of alignment. Mary trusted that what God planted would speak for itself in time. And it did. And this is where her story touches yours. Because the silence Mary chose was not about disappearing. It was about positioning. She understood something most of us learn the hard way. When God is doing something sacred in you, constant explanation weakens it. The need to be understood can rush what is meant to mature. The urge to clarify can interrupt what is meant to unfold. Mary didn't stay silent because she lacked truth. She stayed silent because she trusted timing. She allowed God to defend what He authored. She allowed fruit to speak louder than words. She allowed presence to replace persuasion. And that same invitation rests gently on you now. Not to withhold your voice forever, but to let it pass through prayer before it passes through your lips. Because when your words are born in stillness, they carry authority without force. They land without wounding. They heal without controlling. This is what sacred restraint looks like. Not weakness, not fear, but wisdom that knows what is aligned with God does not need to be rushed. There is a quiet shift that happens when you stop seeing silence as loss and start seeing it as alignment. Reaction feels powerful in the moment. It gives the illusion of control. It makes you feel present, involved, necessary. But wisdom moves slower. Reaction asks, how do I fix this right now? Wisdom asks, What is God already doing here? Reaction fills the space with words. Wisdom creates space for discernment. Reaction speaks from urgency. Wisdom waits for permission. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never yours to hold. You begin to notice the difference between speaking to relieve your anxiety and speaking because your spirit has been released. Between correcting to feel secure and guiding because you've been sent. Between filling silence because it's uncomfortable and honoring silence because it's sacred. This is the reframing. Not less voice, but truer voice. This is where the change becomes lived, not forced, not dramatic, but real. Step 1. Pause before the first word. When you feel the urge to speak, don't silence it, delay it. Give yourself 3 slow breaths, not to censor truth, but to let your spirit catch up with your mouth. Ask yourself quietly, am I speaking to bring peace or to release tension? Step 2. Name the feeling before the solution. When someone shares, resist the instinct to fix. Instead, acknowledge what you hear. That sounds heavy. I can see why that hurts. Connection often heals more than advice ever could. Ask yourself, do they need guidance right now or presence? Step 3. Pray in silence before you respond. Even if it's only a sentence in your heart. God, should I speak? This one habit will change everything. Because a word that waits for permission arrives with authority. Ask yourself, has this been released or am I rushing it? Step 4. Let others finish their thought. Interrupting doesn't always come from pride. Sometimes it comes from fear of forgetting. Trust this. What matters will return to you if it's meant to be said. Ask yourself, what might rise in them if I don't step in? Step 5. Speak fewer words, but let them land. When you do speak, keep it simple, clear, unloaded. You don't need to explain everything to be understood. Let silence do some of the work after your words. Ask yourself, am I leaving space for this to be received? None of these steps are about shrinking, they're about strengthening. This is how restraint becomes wisdom. Silence is sacred, but it is not submission to harm. Choosing restraint does not mean tolerating abuse. It does not mean allowing manipulation, disrespect, or violence. It does not mean disappearing to keep the peace. Wisdom includes boundaries. There are moments when silence protects your spirit, and moments when speaking protects your safety. Discernment knows the difference. God never asks you to be quiet in the presence of cruelty. He never calls silence where truth is required to stop harm. He never confuses patience with self-erasure. Holy restraint is about timing, not suppression. It is about choosing when to speak, not losing your right to speak. And the more you listen to the Spirit, the clearer that distinction becomes. Silence is powerful only when it is chosen freely, not when it is forced by fear. So take a breath, not the kind you take when you're preparing to explain yourself, but the kind you take when you finally realize you don't have to carry everything anymore. You've been strong for a long time, strong enough to speak when things felt fragile, strong enough to stand your ground when no one else would. But strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it rests. Sometimes it loosens its grip and lets God hold what you were never meant to manage alone. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are simply being invited into a quieter kind of power. This is the moment where nothing needs to be fixed. No promises to do better. No vows to never speak again. No pressure to become someone else overnight. Just surrender. Surrender the need to be understood immediately. Surrender the urge to correct everything. Surrender the fear that silence will make you invisible. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the space between thoughts widen. Because surrender isn't giving up your voice, it's trusting God with its timing. And when you do, you may notice something surprising. Peace doesn't rush in loudly. It arrives gently, like permission. Let's close this the way it was meant to close, not with effort, but with openness. Father, thank you for the woman reading these words right now. You see her heart, how deeply she loves, how much she cares, how often she has tried to protect with her voice. If her words have ever come from fear instead of trust, meet her there gently. Quiet what has been restless inside her, not to silence her, but to heal her. Teach her the beauty of holy timing. Let her voice be shaped by peace, soaked in wisdom, and released only when you breathe on it. Where she has spoken too soon, restore. Where she has carried guilt, lift it. Where she has been misunderstood, cover her. And where silence is needed, give her courage to wait. Amen. And now, just one gentle step. Tonight, choose one conversation where you will listen more than you speak. Not to disappear, but to observe what God does when you make room. If this journey resonated with you, carry it quietly for a moment. Then, when it feels right, share it with someone who needs permission to rest their voice too. Because when you close your mouth in faith, you open space for heaven to move. And that is where true peace begins.